Back in the 80s, I met this guy, Sid, who used to cut old VHS tapes and crap. It was more than a hobby for him. It was pretty much his entire life. His parents were a bit more wealthy than I'd been blessed with, so when we were teenagers and was sliving away at Scats, yes, Scats, fast food restaurant, he just hung around the house cutting tapes all day, all night. Of course, as you get older, things in your past become a bit clearer, and I think he might have been borderline autistic, or maybe he was a high-functioning person with Asperger's. But of course, I'm no expert, and I'm not saying that was the case. It's just the best and quickest way I can think of to explain his personality and his obsession with cutting tape, and cutting tape. It started when he saw Old Yeller as a little kid. For whatever reason, his parents let him watch that crap. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a tale of a boy and his dog. I hope I don't have to announce the spoiler on such an old movie, but in the end, the boy has to shoot his own dog because it's rabid. Sid didn't appreciate this. His dad photographed and videotaped weddings, so he showed Sid how to operate some of the machines. And Sid cut out the ending, replacing it with an earlier, happier scene as if Old Yeller suddenly got better off screen. He watched the tape obsessively after that. Even in his early teens, when I first met him, he made me watch it once to show how he fixed it. And I could actually picture him as a little boy once he started applauding and cheering his own folks' ending. I don't want to say I was a bad influence, but after I saw it, I asked if he could do that with other movies. My major interest is perhaps taking a film or two and cutting in some nude frames the actress hadn't really done. Don't worry, I never really had the guts to actually ask if he would. I just imagine how cool it would be often. Sid told me yes, he could fix any movie he wanted. In fact, he had once done it with a few others. He had a copy of a Ghostbusters cartoon, and I kid you not, every ghost was completely removed. The story made absolutely no sense. There was no continuity, but he had accomplished it, and I was very impressed. I guess in the time of VHS, these things seemed more magical than they do nowadays. As time went by, I encouraged Sid to edit more movies, but with different purposes, instead of whitewashing all of the scary stuff like he wanted to do. I got him to see the light on how awesome he could make things. Somewhere out there, this chubby Star Wars nerd from our high school has all 3 original films flawlessly cut together with editing effects that would have made George Lucas himself cry out, "Enough mabbling." We charged him like $20 for the only copy because we were idiots. Anyway, this went on for a while until I lost most of my interest in it. It was more of a good thing for me than it was for him. This is the point where I started working, started driving, and started taking bases with local girls. while he just got more and more involved in cutting those tapes. Now, I think his favorites were cartoons. When the Simpsons came around, he went ape crap with those. Now, his edits weren't so much fixing things as just breaking them in interesting ways. Another thing that sticks out in my mind is when he recorded an episode of MASH and cut it with a gory old war flick. Halfway through his version, the camp gets bombed, soldiers evade, everyone dies at the end. He specifically worked in freeze frames of each cast member's eyes closed. He had completely reversed his interests and embraced what had once terrified him: scary endings. He seemed to love things like long, drawn-out sequences and terrifying silence. He would make me be quiet when they play too, trust me. You may have heard about this mysterious fellow named Banksy who goes around creating interesting graffiti and whatnot. At one point, he went into a music store and replaced with some Paris Hilton CDs with his own fakes. Banksy had nothing on Sid. Every other week, he would tell me about some store or video rental place he snuck some of his tapes into. He swapped out the real ones for his versions, and then he'd start all over by cutting the tapes he once stolen. At one point, when I hadn't heard from him from a long while, I stopped by his parents' house and found him in the garage. He basically set up his own little movie studio in there, complete with a drawing board. He was actually animating entirely new content. All at once, I was both blown away at his artistic skill I had never seen before, and very concerned about when this guy was going to come out of the dark and start acting normal like me again. He barely looked up at his own drawings as we spoke. I asked him what any kid now in his late teens would ask. What is wrong with you? Seriously, dude, this is crazy crap. It's work. I'm working. My work is just as important as everyone's else. Are you even selling these anymore, or are you just sneaking them into these places? How much is this even costing your dad? I don't care. I looked at what he was illustrating. Is that a headless body? Dancing? Yeah. That's pretty dark, man. I know, that's the point. I don't get it. Those tapes. I thought they were wrong, but over time I figured out the truth, which is the scary stuff is right. The happy endings are the lies. He just kept drawing as I stood there. The silence was disturbing, and in that moment I could smell the BO coming off of him. It wasn't sweat either. Yeah, I hate to say it, but I gave up on him right then. It's at that moment when you look at someone you thought you knew, and all that you could think is, oh crap, I never realized they were this far gone. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that Sid crossed my mind again. I was perusing the internet, just aimlessly wandering the web, when I came across a series of urban legends about strange VHS tapes, recut movies, and lost episodes. Some of these are recognized because I watched them with Sid, or I actually seem in the middle of working on some of them. Every disturbing scene, every unbelievable anecdote, I believed it because I had been there. Other SpongeBob cartoons, episodes of iCarly, or whatever, those shows came along after I made my break with Sid. But the style was all too familiar. Even the ones that didn't sound like his work seemed like they could have been broken copies or attempts at mimicking his work. He was still doing it. My god, it boggles my mind. I called up Sid's old number, not entirely sure I would find him there. It rang for minutes on end, and I knew that my search was hopeless. Even if he was still living with his parents, it wouldn't be likely they would be at the same house by now. Still, I made it a point to drive out to his old place to see if he's still in that garage cutting tapes, manipulating via computer, or whatever he might be up to. When I passed by the house, the unkept one was overgrown with huge waist-high weeds, and a disabled facade of the building, with peeling paint on the shutters, missing roof tiles, and muck-filled gutters, told me that no one had lived there for a long time. I saw a note on the door, but I couldn't read it from the road. Maybe it was something I could use to locate Sid and see if he got the help I realized I could have given him. Pulling into the driveway, my headlights illuminated the garage door. It was windowless and vandalized, with a gangster tags of traveling band of buttholes. The note on the door, as one might expect, spoke of a certain bank now owning the property. It noted that trespassing was heavily discouraged and that at a certain point, someone would be out to make sure the house was winterized, whatever the heck that is. As I walked back to the car defeated, something was nagging on me. I knew that Sid's parents kept a spare key under a false lock under the stairs. By the stairs, I mean. Basically a for two of Sid locking us out on several occasions. When I found that key, a sense of cold, knowing dread swirled in my stomach. Who would move out and leave everything in place like this? The key was the most obvious thing, but flower pots and lawn decorations was still there. Sid's old rusted out hovy bike was just leaning against the house and had created thick rusty streaks along the aluminum shading. I don't even know what I expected to find, but using the key I entered the house. The smell was overwhelming, not a putrid smell, nothing rotting or decaying. Just the smell is, I don't know if this would make sense to you, but the smell of electricity. Like burning dust on a light bulb or a heater giving off a peculiar warmed metal odor. That was the least of my concerns, though. However, as I saw everything just as I left it, everything Sid's family owned was frozen in time. The dining room we all sat at on many occasions was dust-covered and supported a dead rat that just turned into dust. The television, that bulky, oversized television set, we all sat to watch Sid's tape and watch his creativity. It just sat there, where it always has been, silently displaying a violent bombardment of black and white static. As I moved through the rooms, a sense of panic and discomfort within me only grew. Every fiber of my being was shouting, "Run! Run, you flipping idiot!" Still, I pressed on to Sid's bedroom. It was now empty and is in despair. His prized action figures and blank videotapes, hundreds of videotapes stale and water damaged. I most wanted to call out to shout, "Sid," and wait for him to appear as if nothing was out of the ordinary. I went into his parents' bedroom. There laying in bed were two motionless bodies, gaunt, gray, half turned to dust like the rat in the dining room. I could scarcely believe what I was seeing with my own eyes. Not only were two dead bodies slowly was this end in this house, but nobody even bothered to check on them. Nobody had discovered this until now. My mind raced, my heart raced, and the only things that wouldn't move were my feet, which remained glued to the spot. Sid, I thought, must have done this. There is no way the two of them would just lay down one night and just die of natural causes. Sid said he didn't care about his parents, and when was the last time I even seen them? God, I haven't even seen them for days. Maybe weeks before the last time I talked to Sid. When I finally left the room, I took out the cell phone and began dialing 911. However, as soon as I lifted it to my head, an ear-splitting shriek of interference nearly caused me to fling the object to it across the room. I rushed to the kitchen phone, squealing static. I tried the living room phone just to be thorough, static. It wasn't until I put the receiver down that I heard it. Music. Faint, very audible music that I hadn't even noticed before. It seemed to be some repeating melody, happy and light, some flutes, maybe a whole horn section. I followed the peppy tune to the in-house door to the garage, pressing my ear to the door's dirty surface, and I determined that the music was indeed coming from beyond. Just beyond. "Sid?" I called out, barely managing to form the name with cold, bloodless lips. "Sid? Are you in there? Are you alright?" I tried the door only to find it somehow locked from the other side. It was no matter, since one wild kick nearly knocked the rotting wood off its hinges. "Sid!" I shouted as the dust slowly cleared. Through the haze, I could only see a light of a television screen, vibrant colors, blue, green, and yellow. Soon I could make out a cartoon playing on the screen, then a silver wires was running from the set itself to some dark mass. Then the dark mass took shape as my eyes adjusted to the odd lighting. It was Sid, or rather his body, not dead nearly as long as his parents, seated in a old office chair. The wires from the television set led directly to his body, eventually disappearing in several old crusty over holes in his flesh. Through a small worm-eating and opening in his ribs, I thought I could see more metal in him. I walked to Sid's side, holding my hand over my mouth for fear of vomiting. His face was twisted into a hideous wide grin. His empty eye sockets almost seemed happy, hidden by a pleased brow line. "Hi there," I heard a jarring voice. The voice was upbeat, high-pitched. It sounded almost like Sid, but different, bubbly, and cartoony. I turned to the screen. The green grass, the blue sky, and the yellow flowers, and Sid, a perfect caricature of him. It scrolled along an infinite loop of that of a cartoon background. It waved at me. "Sid," I whispered. "Oh God, Sid." The cartoon version of him, turned his attention away from me and continued to stroll across that unending cycle of the same backdrop. He passed a shrub, then passed it again and again. The same blue bird chirping happily through the sky in a figure 8. "Sid," I shook my head, unable to comprehend the scenario. I should have never let you leave reality. I thought about what Sid had done to his mom and dad. I thought about how the bank would come by soon and how all this would have came to light. I watched Sid walk along for a nearly half hour. Then I unplugged the set.